Let's come right over and disconnect our negative battery terminal. Get this loose. Let's start taking apart the top of the engine here. Let's carefully lift up on this. We want to be very careful not to dump any dirt into our engine. And I'll just pop this off of here so we can set it aside. With the air filter housing out of the way, let's go ahead and grab onto this right here. Just going to lift this up. Inspect your gasket, make sure it's still in good condition. You can set this aside. Now I'm going to grab this gasket from under here. Inspect that as well. Set it aside. Along the passenger side, let's remove some electrical connectors. Every time you remove an electrical connector, just inspect it. If you see any funny colors, it's corrosion and it needs to be dealt with. This one's got a tab underneath. Let's lift on that. Set that aside as well. Let's move along the front here. Remove these vacuum lines. You just want to give these a squeeze, make sure they're still soft and pliable, and of course the line itself isn't damaged in any way. Remove that hose as well. Go ahead and give that a wiggle. Remove it right from that PCV valve. Let's get this wiring out of here. Just going to gently slide it out. There we are. Now for these right here, there's two little tabs up along the top. You just gently squeeze those together, give this a wiggle and slide it off. Do the same on the other one. Now once we remove these for the intake, we're going to also remove this. Let's go ahead and grab onto this. Get all this right out of the way. Now I'm just going to carefully pry this hose off of here. Inspect that hose as well. Now we're going to move along to the driver's side and start removing our cables. This cable right here has a little Lucky-Do clip on it, so I'm just going to carefully get in between this area, separate it, and then lift this up and off. That's what the clip looked like. Now I can grab onto this, slide it right off of there. Now for this cable right here, I'm just going to gently press on this lever right here, and then I should be able to slide this off. Set that aside. Now I'm going to make my way to the back side of the throttle body. We'll get this little hose off of here. Next, we're going to remove our two fuel lines. There's one over on the passenger side, and there's one over on the driver's side. I'm going to start with the passenger side. This is a 16 millimeter. There could be fuel inside these lines, so you want to be very careful. There's that one. Now I'm going to move over to the driver's side. This one's a 17 millimeter. I'm just going to use some pliers to hold the fitting still for me. Now we can separate these lines. While the lines are off, it's a good idea to take a look at these O-rings right across here. You want to make sure they're still in good condition. If it seems like they're swollen or dry and cracked in any way, you want to make sure you go ahead and replace them. These two look okay. I'm not super worried about them. Just set the lines aside. At this point, we can start unbolting our throttle body from the intake. Now, if you wanted to, you could use a wrench and just come right along here and loosen these up. Once they're loose, you can just unscrew them. If you didn't want to use a wrench, you could just unscrew the rod from this area here and then use a socket right over that. Just unscrew this one. Do the same to the other side. Let's remove this forward bolt. Now we should be able to lift this up. All right. I put the throttle body inside a nice collection area here, so that way there I can go ahead and remove this gasket. Just carefully pull it right off of there. You can set that aside. And now what I generally like to do is go ahead and clean this down. If you see any black inside there, it's probably some sort of carbon buildup, and you want to make sure it's nice and clean so this can function properly. If you wanted to open up the valves, you can just go ahead and turn it just like this. That way there you can clean everything properly. The next thing that we want to do is make sure that there isn't any residue from our original gasket on this. If there is, just use a nice flat blade razor and just kind of scuff it right off of there. Let's take our gasket for the throttle body. We're going to put it right down onto the intake here. Line up all three of your bolt holes, grab that throttle body, line it up as well. Start in all three of your mounting bolts. Now we're just going to bottom out the bolt in the front there and both of these nuts right along here. Okay. Now you want to try to torque these to 18 foot-pounds. This one right here is going to be fairly easy to torque. For these over here, you can probably try to use a crow's foot of some sort, but essentially just try to gauge it so that they're snug and go a teeny bit more, and it should be good enough. Connect your connectors, give them a nice tug after you get them in there. Bring this down. Connect that on there. Take this one, slide it right down here. Let's take this and put it on our PCV hose. Bring this one over here. Put it on there. If it feels like any of these connections are loose or they feel like they want to slide off, you definitely want to make sure you put a wire tie or something to hold them on there so they're secure. On the back side of the throttle body, let's go ahead and put this on here. And now we can start connecting in both of our fuel lines. You have one here, and then you should have the other one that goes in on the other side. Okay, that one bottomed out. Just give it a little bit more. Do the same to the other fuel line. Now let's get our cables on here. Slide this on. There we are. Make sure it definitely doesn't fall off. Now we're going to continue pulling on this so we can put this cable on. Now once you have that cable on there, you're going to want to put on this locking clip right here. Essentially you just go ahead and press it on there and then press it down. And then just make sure that the locking clip cannot fall off. It needs to have this little tab along the side here. That way there, when you go ahead and you step on the gas pedal, this is going to be able to function as it should. Now let's grab this wiring and reconnect this in. Give that a nice tug. Slide this in here. You want to make sure this is completely seated because you're going to have a gasket that comes along here, and that has to hold moisture and debris out of your throttle body area. Now we can take these and we're just going to line them up with their little pitons, press it in, listen for a click, give it a nice tug. Make sure it's secure. Do the same on the other one. Now we can take one of our circular gaskets. We're just going to bring it right down over this, get it into position. Let's slide this off of here and prepare to put this onto the engine. There we are. Now we can take this hose, put it right in there. Time for our next gasket. Slide it right down over that. Down over this. Reattach it to that. You should see this want to line up right in here. Now we can grab our air filter and our cover. This cover you can put in any direction you want to have. This is just the way that the cover was originally, so I'm going to go ahead and put it the same way. Make sure these are nice and tight. Give that a nice wiggle, make sure it's secure. Reconnect your negative battery terminal. Okay friends, we got our throttle body in there. What's left to do now? Now you're going to carefully start up the truck. You want to let it run for a little bit. Make sure the engine doesn't stumble around, it doesn't have a misfire, and you don't have a check engine light. After that, take it for a road test.